This is the fictional comic book character Frank Castle, also known as the Punisher. He's one of the most famous and popular comic book characters of all time, but also one of the most controversial ones, being that he's not just a vigilante like Batman that hunts down criminals. Frank hunts them down and kills them. I believe in fiction that's okay because you can take some creative liberties for escapist fantasy for your entertainment. The controversy arises from the fact that some members of the police force in real life have adopted the Punisher logo. And in this video, I'm going to discuss just how dangerous and reckless and inappropriate that is. So in this special report, I'm going to break down the Punisher logo and symbolism, and should law enforcement be using these symbols. But first, let's do a quick breakdown of the origin of the Punisher in comics. The Punisher made his debut in Amazing Spider-Man 129 in 1974. He was created by Jerry Conway, Ross Andru, and John Romita Sr. Rest in peace to Romita Sr. He was a real legend in this game. He will be missed. He's supposed to just be the villain of the month trying to hunt down Spider-Man. What made him interesting though and stand out was that skull logo on his chest. He didn't wear a mask and he didn't have supernatural superpowers. They probably made a mistake with the white go-go boots, but they look darker on the interior art. All the things I mentioned in his origin made him a very relatable character. Plus, he was a product of his time. It was a very gritty and nihilistic era. America was still bogged down in Vietnam, and there was a loss in faith of America's institutions. When it turned out that the president was massively corrupt and had to resign rather than be impeached. And for a moment, anti-heroes started to replace straight-laced heroes, the type that didn't completely play by the book and was willing to subvert the law to achieve justice, such as Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry character. He didn't care about your Miranda rights, he didn't care about illegal search and seizure, and although working with the police department, he was an anti-hero with a big-ass gun who was willing to break a couple of laws to take down criminals who were even worse. When you try to take down a crime mob, you can't use standard police procedure. What's that? You're supposed to gun them down and then say, "You feel lucky, punk? Huh? You feeling lucky? Go ahead. Make my day." Was that a good impersonation? Let me know in the comments. Another influence on the Punisher was Charles Bronson and his Death Wish movies. He was not a cop, he was just an ordinary Joe who was just tired of crime in his city. So, of course, he takes out a gun and decides to go out at night and clean it up himself. So, this is the era that made it plausible for a character like the Punisher to arise in comics. And due to the character's popularity, they gave him a backstory in which he's a member of the military who's returning home from Vietnam. It turns out that organized crime has wiped out his whole family. Of course, he picks up guns and he aims for revenge, becomes a one-man army against criminal scum. He kills criminals when he catches them. He's an elite military veteran with a vendetta. He is the Punisher, and he's coming for you, and he will give no mercy. Batman might capture the Joker, throw him in Arkham Asylum. He gets out, causes more death, mayhem, and destruction. The Batman has to capture him again, throw him in Arkham, repeat. But with the Punisher, there's no revolving door on justice. He hunts down the bad guys and kills them on the spot. Surprisingly, it took 12 years for the Punisher to get his own spin-off. Here's number one, his first miniseries from 1986. Obviously, it was very successful, so Marvel rolled him into his own ongoing series in 1987. Of course, he was a harbinger of what was to come because the 90s were going to get really gritty. With the introduction of Rob Liefeld's Cable in New Mutants number 86 and first full and cover in 87, the 90s gave us an era in which the dark, gritty anti-hero wasn't the exception, it was the rule. So the Punisher was way ahead of his time in terms of where comics were heading. So Marvel didn't just have one Punisher series in the 1990s, they also did a spin-off of the Punisher War Journal and the Punisher War Zone. It was all Punisher all the time, and they probably overdid it. Punisher's story isn't very complicated. He is who he is, which I've already stated and broke down. And his chest skull logo became iconic to people who even never read a comic before. Now that you know more about the Punisher's backstory and the origin, so let's get back to the controversy that I talked about at the beginning of this video, how some members of law enforcement have co-opted the Punisher logo as their own, which for the record, I find disturbing and inappropriate. The cops are also known as the Boys in Blue or the Thin Blue Line. That is a reference to themselves as the peacekeepers, the ones that are protecting the street from anarchy, from criminals. So this is the police viewing themselves through military terms like they are a small elite force against overwhelming odds protecting society. So when you see this flag, that is what that is trying to interpret, the Thin Blue Line, literally. And don't get me wrong, we need a police force. I'm not some hardcore leftist that hates the police. You're never going to hear me say something as reckless as defund the police. That is stupid. There needs to be a highly trained, disciplined police force that defends the law but doesn't break the law. The police might have to show up on a domestic violence call, which could go downhill real quickly and turn into a murder-suicide. And they're putting themselves in danger trying to resolve that issue. Police do things like set up checkpoints on holiday weekends and check IDs and see if they smell alcohol in the breath of drivers, which can do things like take dangerous fugitives and get them off the street and capture drunk drivers who could kill people with their vehicle. This is all good work that helps society, and I appreciate cops that have to do this and risk their life in the process. There are cousins of mine that work in law enforcement, and I appreciate them and I let them know that. However, the problem arises when the police decide to do things like this and take the thin blue line imagery and apply it to the Punisher logo. The police are sworn in to protect and serve. You are to uphold the law, but also abide by the law. You work within the framework of the law. You have a chain of command and you follow orders. The fictional character, the Punisher, is the total opposite. He does not abide by the law. He works outside the law as a vigilante. He has no mandate from the government to do what he's doing. He has no chain of command and acts in a unilateral type of way. So for real police to use the fictional Punisher imagery is dangerously inappropriate. Marvel has addressed this subject, but they have not been very vocal or public about it. In all actuality, they could enforce their copyright and do a cease and desist, but I don't think they've ever done that because that would be really bad PR for both the police and for Marvel. There was an attempt at a compromise by trying to change the Punisher's logo. And you probably saw it before and you thought, what the heck is this? And why does the Punisher's logo look like something out of an anime? It looks really bad and it also confuses people. Like, did the artist forget how to draw the Punisher logo? What's going on here? So I don't think changing the logo is a real solution. But my main point is that the Punisher isn't exactly a role model for law enforcement. He's a character who operates outside the boundaries of the law, engaging in extreme violence. When that imagery is associated with those who are sworn to serve and protect, it sends a confusing message. I mean, come on cops, even Judge Dredd would be a better symbol to use than the Punisher, because his methods are extreme, but he's working within the framework of the law at that time in the future, where one person can be the judge, jury, and executioner if the crime is bad enough. Too many times in America, black people have noticed that there's no justice all the time, it's just us. Are the victims of police corruption that's been covered up way too many times for way too long. If a civilian on the street wasn't there to capture the murder of George Floyd, Derek Chauvin would have got away with this. Breonna Taylor was killed in her sleep by unnecessary, reckless, and fanatical police misconduct. The corrupt DA in Kentucky tried to cover up for him and only gave one small minor charge to one officer. Thanks to massive public outrage, the Justice Department has charged these officers on the federal level, which I applaud. This is just 2 cases. I could name literally just dozens, but I don't think we have enough time. So in a time when transparency, accountability, and community trust are crucial for law enforcement, the use of the Punisher logo by some officers seems counterproductive and can inadvertently undermine the very principles of law and order they meant to uphold. And my question to police officers that use the Punisher logo: why did you choose violence when you had a chance to choose justice? Why didn't you use the Captain America logo? He's literally a symbol of truth, justice, and the American way, and fairness. He was also a military person with accountability on his actions, working with the government to take down Nazi scum in World War II. I know some of you trolls are going to point to the fact that Captain America became a vigilante in the live-action movies and Captain America Civil War. But overall, this character that has been in existence for 82 years has been the perfect example that police departments should be using if they want to use a fictional logo. So instead of choosing violence, you could choose justice for a chance. So tell me, what are your thoughts on the topic about the controversial use of the Punisher logo by some police officers? Does it seem like a harmless nod to pop culture, or do you share my concerns about its implication? Be sure to speak up in the comment section and let's have a robust debate about this. And let me state once again for the record, I am not anti-police. I'm not one of these people that says we should defund the police. However, I am against police corruption and the lack of accountability and justice in which black people have been the victims of for way too long in American history at the hands of law enforcement. On a lighter note, be sure to check out a video I did previously called A Superhero Landing Video, where it's nothing but superhero landings back to back. It quotes Deadpool from his first movie in 2016, where he literally says superhero land, pointing out just how cliche that landing has been, and they still continue to use it, so it's sort of like an ironic comedy device, even if the action of it happens in something that's serious. Until next time, this is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power saying bye-bye.